The top 1%, they take everything. The winner takes it all, the loser has to fall. But why is that actually the case? Why is there this big disparity? And is there a way to potentially jump from being the masses, from being among the 99% to the 1% without too much effort, without sacrificing the entire life and working 100 hours a week? In our system, being average, it doesn't mean that we get just average returns. It doesn't mean that we get average income. It actually means we get almost nothing. A few get everything, the vast majority gets nothing. And so most people think that material success is linear. It seems to be intuitive, right? If we work 20 hours versus 40 hours versus 80 hours, if we double our numbers of hours worked, we should also always double our income. We should double our returns. We should double our proceeds, the fruits of our labor. But really, the system is set up in a different way. There is this brutal power law. If you are number one in something, you get much more compared to when you're number 2 or number 5 or number 100. Now, it seems like this effect might not be that broad. For example, let's say in investing, if we buy a certain asset and we just hold it for long enough, then everybody can be a winner. So it's not just a winner takes it all market. And that's true if we compare the various investments, say stocks or property or crypto, if you compare those versus the US dollar. The issue though is that the US dollar is devaluing over time. So if we then compare various assets versus the monetary base, we do not necessarily see that everybody is winning all the time. Most assets simply just keep pace with monetary debasement. The monetary base expands by roughly 6.8% per annum. If you're investing over the long term, you're not making at least that kind of return, you are falling behind the 1% that make more than 6.8% per annum. With active trading, so where we try to outperform the general market, it's even more clear. Right? If we get more return compared to the average market participant, there needs to be another market participant in the market that tends to get underperformance. So indirectly, when we get outperformance, we are taking away performance from somebody else. This is a distribution system from the not so skilled or from the not so lucky to the people that had the skills, that had the luck. The vast majority of people that try to beat the market tend to underperform. And again, there's a small sliver of market participants that concentrate all the returns. They make the multiple X returns. We see the same, for example, here on YouTube, right? We've got a strong concentration towards a few channels. If you want to be in the YouTube game and you just want to have, say, 100,000 subscribers, you need to be among the top 1%. Less than 1% of YouTube channels actually have 100,000 subscribers. 99% have less than that. And so in general business, it's the same thing. Most businesses can barely survive. After 5 years, more than half of businesses have closed down. After 10 years, 2/3 of businesses have closed down. So if you're running a business for more than 10 years, you're already among the top third of all business owners. And that doesn't even mean that you're making a lot of money. It just means that you're making enough not to close it down. And so this seems kind of unfair. This seems like a system that's not optimized to make everybody as happy as possible, right? A few people, they get all the gains, the vast majority doesn't. And so that's where the political discussions sometimes start, right? Can't we have a society where the gains are somewhat more evenly spread? Because let's say the 1%, right? Let's say somebody that has 10 million now goes up to 11 million through investments, through business, etc. That gain from 10 to 11 million really won't make much of a difference to that person. But somebody that doesn't have any money at all and suddenly reaches the first million, that's a huge difference. So obviously we are not optimizing in terms of happiness across the population if a few people get more and more of the gains. If they get the business gains, if they get the gains from YouTube, if they get the gains from trading, from investing, etc. Now, unfortunately, socialism hasn't worked. Even though it has been tried time and time again, there's corruption, there's all kinds of reasons why it didn't work. But there's also the fundamental nature of humans. Why socialism? Why spreading out the gains too far doesn't work. When you make a consequential decision, you try to make the very best decision, right? Let's say you buy a phone and that's a major purchase for you. You're buying a phone. You will try to buy the best phone, whatever best means to you. You will not settle for the second best or the third best. Now, best can mean best in terms of functionality, best in terms of quality, maybe the best brand. It can also mean the best price versus quality. So where do we get the most value? It can also be the cheapest option that you can currently afford. But in some way, whatever you're choosing has to be best in a certain dimension. The second best will not be chosen. And so when you look at those different metrics, how you can measure the best, and you're not number one in any of those potential metrics, you will have a hard time gaining any market share. You will have a hard time selling your product or service. It really pays massively if you're the best in something. It pays much less if you're the second best. It pays pretty much nothing if you're just average. If you look at all of the phones in a store and there's nothing that convinces you to buy just an average phone there, you will not pick it up. You will not buy it. This effect of concentrated returns, so be this investment returns or be this revenue for business, etc., it seems to be more important the higher stakes the decision is. So let's say we've got the phone example, right? We buy one phone maybe over 3 or 4 years. We keep that phone, so we get informed about what might be the best decision. But when we've got a decision with much less of an impact and where we might want to have some variety over time, we tend to see less market concentration. So we've got a few players that monopolized the mobile phone market. We've got a lot of different choices regarding restaurants, right? The food and beverage industry is not as monopolized because on Monday we might want to go to a different restaurant compared to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We will not end up buying McDonald's every single day. And so the market is less monopolized. The consequences of our decisions aren't as far-reaching, and we want to have some variety. Still, I believe that trying to become number one in something is very important, even if it's an incredibly narrow niche. But if you are the best option for a very particular situation, you will have a much better time than being just the average option for something that everybody is offering. In most situations, 80-20 is probably not up to date anymore, as in 80% of the gains will go to 20% of market participants. Probably now it's rather 90-10. Maybe in the future it's going to be 95-5. So maybe 5% of market participants get 95% of the gains. It depends a bit on what context we are looking at, but still it does pay off to focus on something, not to have 10 different businesses running, not to have 10 different skills that we want to learn, but maybe just have one thing that we're incredibly good at, and then just reap the rewards of that particular thing. It pays to be very focused on something. It pays to be specialized. It pays to be the best option for something. And so how can we be the best option in something? I think specialization in a niche in terms of the intersection of two skills makes a lot of sense. So instead of trying to become the best crypto YouTube channel, it makes sense to focus on being the best crypto YouTube channel that also focuses on data analysis, that also focuses on showing how the performance worked in the past, in using an analytical and quantitative approach, becoming the best in that. That's probably better than just trying to be the best broad crypto channel. Because the best broad crypto YouTube channel, they might be focusing on just marketing. They might be focusing on promotion. They might focus on just serving the masses. But that's not necessarily something that appeals to the analytical mind, right? That just tries to find the best risk to reward and just doesn't want to just buy a lottery ticket, a 100x opportunity that might very well go down to zero as well. And so that's where my niche is, right? I'm in crypto, I'm in analytics. I also have a traditional finance background, right? I studied in Hong Kong for a master in financial analysis. So that's my intersection. I don't think there's too many crypto YouTube channels with that background. Most crypto channels are just pump and dumps, and most traditional finance people, they don't want to touch crypto. So that intersection is where I try to position this channel here. So it's good to have a specialization and ideally have this intersection of two markets or two skills, also in combination with a market that's currently growing. So this can be artificial intelligence, crypto, traditional finance. This could also be, say, engineering and renewable energies. This could be sales and maybe data center infrastructure, right? Data centers are currently growing very quickly. Sales is a nice complementary skill. And so those kinds of combinations, they tend to do well. A growing market combined with a specialized skill that most people might not have in that growing market. That's usually where all the gains are made. This is how it's easier to become a top 1%, simply by specializing on an intersection of two things. It's true that the winner takes it all, but we don't have to outcompete 99 people to become the top 1%. We actually want to avoid competition. We want to find a place where there's very little competition. We want to find the one niche that we can master, where we can become the best option. If you got some value out of this video, feel free to give it a like. I publish here regularly. Feel free to also subscribe. I publish here regularly. There's also a playlist with similar videos like this, mindset and strategy videos. Just click on this channel, go to playlist, and feel free to just binge watch those videos if you got some value out of this. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Cheers.